Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to Austin Startup Week. This is the mental health wellness track. We're going to have 3 sessions throughout the day, as well as networking opportunities so you get to know your attendees. And to close out the day, we'll also have a mental and health and wellness happy hour at Irene's starting at 5 p.m. You don't want to miss this. Before we get started, I wanted to introduce myself and why I'm excited to be the track advisor and your MC for the mental health and wellness track today. Again, my name is Tony. I am the head of community for Sana, and I'm actually a community health worker at heart. Before joining Sana, I was actually doing community engagement on the south side and the west side of Chicago, dealing with social determinants of health that were plaguing our older adult community. One of the things that would always come up for people who were retired and on Medicare, that they were lonely. They needed connection. And one of the reasons why I stick to being a community health worker is because I believe that we can make a difference by connecting with each other. Some fun facts about me. I have 2 Boston Terriers. One of them is Star-Lord. He's 5 years old. The second one, his name is R2D2. And I'm actually looking forward to celebrating his birthday in 2 weeks. For R2D2, I'm thinking of getting like the Princess Leia wig. So I'm going to be very excited about wearing that. The other thing about what I'm doing is I'm actually going to be going on vacation pretty soon. So I'm trying to figure out if I want to go work at a farmhouse and learn how to milk a cow. I wanted to also thank our sponsor, Friday Health Plan. So I want to ask, to please bring up Kylie Everhart, Director of Sales of Texas of Friday Health Plans, who will be providing the opening remarks. Hey, Kylie, how are you?
Hi, Tony. I'm great. How are you? Can you hear me? Oh, can you hear me?
I don't know if we're able to hear you. I can't hear you, Kelly. Okay, we can hear you.
Okay. Can you hear me? Great. Thank you very, very much, Tony. I agree with you going to learn to milk a cow, and I think that sounds like an awesome time. So, Tony cannot hear me. Can everyone else hear me? Awesome. Thank you, Haley. So as Tony said, I am Kylie Everhart. I am the Director of Sales for Texas for Friday Health Plans. And we are just so excited to, again, this year sponsor the Mental Health and Wellness track. Mental health and wellness is an extremely important piece of the puzzle for Friday Health Plans, and that's why we offer such excellent benefits for that. And we're just really, really happy to be a part of this again this year, to sponsor this track, to sponsor Capital Factory, who is doing this amazing startup week. A little bit about me. I have 20 years of experience in the health insurance industry. I've come from agency operations and came over to the carrier because Friday Health Plans is coming to Texas and throughout the country to disrupt the market, to break down the barriers to care, to break down the barriers to mental health and to physical well-being. That's what we're here to do, and that's what we're accomplishing in Texas. We've been amazingly successful and super happy to be a part of this community. So I don't really have a whole lot to say for the opening remarks. I just hope that we have a phenomenal week for the mental health and wellness. Unfortunately, I'm traveling today, so I will not be at the happy hour tonight, and I am so sad for that. But we are getting ready to serve this entire community in Texas for the open enrollment, which starts November 1st. Please keep that in mind. November 1st runs through January 15th this year. And so, when you want to look at your insurance for yourself or your group, please come and take a look at Friday Health Plans. We have some amazing benefits here in Texas throughout the state. And so we are just on the road show right now, getting everybody pumped up and teaching about our plans and on our services, just waiting to open up that open enrollment here in 25 days. So it's super, super exciting. Tony, I'm going to hand it back to you.
Thank you so much, Kylie. And thank you for being our sponsor. I actually met with an entrepreneur yesterday, and she was asking me for an individual health plan. And I actually said, please check out Friday Health Plan. And she's definitely going to be sending you guys an email pretty soon. She's actually based in DFW. And I
Wonderful.
just told her amazing stuff about you guys. And I really appreciate the amazing work y'all doing.
Well, and we certainly appreciate you and this entire community. You know, Capital Factory has always had a sweet spot in my heart. It's my first office when I moved to Austin. All of these amazing people at that office have just really welcomed me in. And so we're super happy to be a part of this and can't wait to have a beautiful future with Capital Factory and the Startup Week. And Tony, it's wonderful to see you again.
I know. It's been a year, isn't it?
It's been a year. It's been a year.
Did you know that we have a soccer team now? We have Austin FC. Have you gone to an Austin FC game yet?
I have not. I have seen that amazing stadium and I want to go. I've never really been a soccer person, so I don't even know when the season is to call myself out for that.
I would love for you to be one of my guests. Maybe you and I can go.
Absolutely.
And share a nice beer and just share stories.
I would absolutely love that.
But it's so good to see you. I'm so happy that you're, one of our sponsors, and I really appreciate you coming out and talking to us.
Well, I appreciate you all very much, and I believe that my contact information is in here somewhere. Haley, I think that's correct. And so please don't hesitate to reach out to us. I can get you in touch with one of my team if we want to talk about anything you want to talk about.
Great. Well, so we're going to give an opportunity to get some of our panel speakers ready, and we're going to do a little bit of a break. And from there, we're going to be starting at 9:15 with Brandon and David. So stay tuned. We have more to come, and welcome to Austin Startup Week. Everyone, we're going to start our first session, and that is creating a resilient mindset to start a business. We all want to create something and bring it to this world, and all that starts with your mindset. In a fast-paced world with limited time, but there are techniques that can be learned to achieve your goals. This event is composed of mental skills that, when practiced, will have positive benefits that help improve our mindset. Engaging in these techniques will improve performance, productivity, and organization. So I want to go ahead and welcome our guests. Let's bring up our speakers, Brandon Merger and David Pinkert. Brandon Merger is with Modern Mindfulness, and David Pinkert is with Friday Health Plans. Welcome, guys. How's it going?
Hey, morning.
Good morning, Tony. Thanks for having us.
Good morning, David. How are you, my friend?
Doing well, Brandon. How's your morning going?
It's going well. It's going well. So I'm really excited about asking you some cool questions and exploring what you've been up to, and sharing a little bit about mental wellness. Right off the bat, we just want to hear a little bit about yourself, and also I'll tell you a little bit about who I am, and then I'll ask you some questions. I might throw some hard questions in there. Maybe you can reciprocate, and let's have some fun, man.
Let's do it.
So what is Friday Health Plans? Can you tell us a little bit about your story here?
Yeah, so Friday Health Plans is a high growth, early stage health insurance company, and we're focused on consumers who buy their own health insurance. So that's mostly people who don't get health care from their employer, and they have to go to a state or a federal exchange to buy health insurance every year. When we started the business, Obamacare, or the Affordable Care Act, was kind of new. People didn't really understand it yet, but the founders of Friday Health Plans knew that the big health insurers were going to really struggle to figure out who these consumers were and how to provide them with what they need. And if we could put together a little bit of capital and an enterprising, creative group of people, we could start to learn this market and understand it faster and better than anybody else. And that's the journey that we've been on. We started in our home state of Colorado, actually as a rural health insurer, and really use that as the test laboratory to start figuring out who are these ACA health insurance consumers, how can we help them. and developed a product that seems to be a real winner in the market. We expanded to urban and suburban Colorado. Over the last 3 years, we've now expanded into Nevada and New Mexico, where we're statewide. We've expanded into Texas, and we've got a lot of very happy customers in the Austin area in particular. And we're about to launch 3 new states. We'll go live later this year in North Carolina, Georgia, and Oklahoma. But we are, at the end of the day, a very specialized health insurer that is really 100% focused on individuals, consumers, and families who buy their own health insurance.
Beautiful. Thank you. So I'll tell you guys a little bit about myself and our organization. Modern Mindfulness, we started in China about 11 years ago. And I started teaching mindfulness there. Didn't exist at all. So I saw a problem that in China, they did not have that service. And you would think China, okay, people probably meditate, they probably take care of themselves. They really washed a lot of that out in the 1950s. And then modern mindfulness was very, very new to them. So I saw that problem and I started to create communities in Shanghai. And then 10 years later, I arrived here in Austin. So I've been in Austin for about 1 year. Really hard time to come to a new country during a pandemic. I think some of you guys can relate to that. And when I got here, we started to notice that a lot of people, they're also not taking care of their mental wellness here, and they're not practicing these type of skill sets as much. And a large part of what we do is corporate mindfulness training. And when I arrived here, I started to notice, wow, there are a lot of these mindfulness teachers. There's so many of them. That's amazing. And then I realized about 10% of them were doing this work full time. So we started training them. So once again, I saw another problem in the market. That entrepreneurial mindset started to kick in. I thought, how can I help these guys? So we started consulting them. So we do corporate mindfulness training and teaching individuals. But for the most part, we're training other mindfulness teachers, teaching them those entrepreneurial skill sets because they want to share their gift with the world. And more so, teaching them versatile and palatable ways to portray mental health that is performance oriented so people really understand. So that's a little bit about us. I got a lot of questions here, man. I'm really excited about this. First and foremost, right off the bat, what does your personal mindfulness practice or self-care practice look like?
Yeah, thank you for asking. I mean, as anybody who is in the growth stage of a company knows, the company can take up a lot of your time and a lot of your mind space. And so a lot of the challenge for me is how to shift that or how to put that down when the time is right to do so. I'm an exerciser. Like a lot of people in Colorado, I try to exercise 5 to 6 days a week, if not 7. And besides the physical benefits, what that really does for me is, that's where when I'm spending time alone and sweating, that's where a lot of problem solving happens for me. And it's become sort of a joke between me and some of my business partners where we're in a sticky situation or we're solving a problem that seems really intractable. Someone will say, hey, someone get Dave a bike. We need to send him out for an hour and a half and see if he can solve this or figure it out.
Yeah, take some silence. Yeah.
And it means turning everything off. This is not a social event. This is really, getting out of my office brain and trying to get into a different brain, hopefully, to see if we can find some other way through a situation that we're struggling with. So that's something that's important for me. And it's not on demand. It doesn't mean that every time I go out for a bike ride, I'm going to have a great big light bulb pop up, but it certainly is something that can enable that to happen for me. And I would say the other thing that I do every day that might fall into that self-care category is I'm a musician too. I play the piano and I play every day. And that has sort of the opposite effect. If I feel like I need to get from my work brain to my dad brain or my husband brain or my cook brain or my janitor brain or whatever I'm going to do after work, sometimes it takes something physical like playing the piano to do it. And sometimes I can 10 minutes is all it takes, and sometimes it takes an hour. But when I'm mindful about it, I can sort of feel it happening where, I'm playing, I'm focused on something that's really not the job. And I can feel that work stuff kind of slipping away and feel my brain kind of opening up to whatever it is I got to do next. So those are a couple things that are part of my routine that have very different purposes, but are both pretty important to me.
Totally. And what we say in the mindfulness industry is practicing purposeful silence. We have to find ways to escape or get away from what we call this paid reality.
Mm-hmm.
That's an acronym that stands for pressure, always on, information overload, and distractions everywhere. And you got to get paid, so we're dealing with this. I think that is very interesting. Your team and yourself identified that if there's a big problem, let's get David on a bike, or let's get David to practice purposeful silence. I'm very curious how you guys came to that level of self-awareness and then that realization.
Yeah, it's definitely learned behavior. I didn't start with this routine. As a younger person in my career, I was much more of the go all the time, full speed. Don't worry about sleep, don't worry about food, just work, and good things will happen. And sometimes they actually did. But, I also learned the limits of that over time as well, and learned that sometimes there are faster ways to get there, or more efficient ways to get there, or just more mindful ways to get there, for lack of a better term. Totally. But my co-founder in the business and I have been working together on enough different things over the years. He was one of the first people to observe the pattern of, I'd go for a hike or I'd go for a bike ride, and I'd come back and be like, you won't believe what I thought of.
Right.
Yeah. And so he, that as a good partner, he picked it up probably even before I did. And to the point where he's like, all right, go get out of here. Go figure this out.
So the theme is dealing with burnout and dealing with resilience. And I heard a really great analogy. I'm actually going to give two analogies. The second one I think is a little bit better. One of the fastest land animals in the world. Do you know what it is, David?
Well, I want to say a cheetah, but I'm guessing you've got a better one for me.
No, it's as far as I know, and maybe some people in the audience know, there are faster animals than a cheetah.
Okay.
As far as we know, it's a cheetah. And if you look at a cheetah, most of the time it's moving very slow. And it's conserving its energy, and they can go from 0 to however the hell fast cheetahs run really, really quick. So that's the first analogy for everybody in the startup world, in the business world. You got to slow down to speed up. The second one is if you're looking at race cars. They're going, and then they have to go to a complete stop. And in that stop, they're changing out the tires, they're checking the transmission, they're checking everything to make sure that everything's going to work properly, and then they blast off again. And if they don't do that, what happens to the tires? They just burn out, right?
Yeah.
So mental health is so important. And one of the things that I think you're doing, and I think one of the things that we're doing, is we're trying to make it more palatable for people. One of the things I tell people at Modern Mindfulness is we want to make mental wellness cool.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't have to be taboo at all. So one of the things at Friday Health Plans is you guys offer free mental health care for everyone. I'm fascinated with this. Can you tell me more about that, please?
Yeah, this is a new benefit that we launched this year. At Friday Health Plans, one of our insights into how consumers think about health insurance and how they like to buy it is the first thing people want is they want a low premium, which is kind of obvious, but it's really important. And the second thing is, a lot of times when people buy a cheap health insurance product, for lack of a better term, they wind up unhappy with it because you don't get a lot of healthcare with that health benefit. Some of these products have high deductibles, and you don't really feel like you have any health insurance until you've been hospitalized or worse. And so the challenge for Friday over the last several years has been find innovative ways to bring people healthcare value every day without charging high premiums. And so a few years ago, we launched unlimited free primary care, and that's been a big success for us. We have free unlimited generics in all of our products. And we do the math on those. It turns out almost 80% of Friday members don't have any out-of-pocket healthcare expenses during the year. They pay their Friday premiums and they go to the primary care doc and they refill their meds. That's all free. And when we thought about, well, what else can we do for people? We asked some of our clinical experts at the company, and they said, what about mental health? What are we going to do? Because there's so much undiagnosed, untreated mental illness, mental health concerns walking around. in America and in Friday's member population. There ought to be something better we can do with that. So we looked at a lot of alternatives. And what we realized is that there are just a lot of obstacles to people accessing the mental health care system. One of them is cost. And so if we could make mental health therapy visits free for all of our members, that's not the entire battle, but it certainly removes some of the obstacles to people accessing the mental health care system when they need to. The second thing that we have to do is recruit a lot of mental health providers. There are a lot of health insurance companies that have a kind of a thin benefit or a narrow network, and those are both obstacles to using the system. And so we as a health insurer, we can address those obstacles, and we can make them either very easy to get over or completely frictionless. And that's really our goal. Our first goal is let's make it really easy to use the mental health system. And I mean, the goals there are several goals here and potential outcomes. The first one is we're going to have happier, healthier members, and that's just a good thing. And worth it all by itself. But we also have a thesis that we're actually going to help people save money on healthcare by making mental health care services more accessible. When people have undiagnosed and untreated mental health diseases, it gets manifested in many ways. Anxiety is a great example. When you're feeling anxious, what happens?
I was about to ask you about that.
Yeah, you don't sleep very well. You might put on a few pounds. You might have headaches or chronic lower back pain. And when those things happen, and you don't go to a mental health provider, you go to your primary care physician or you go to an orthopedic surgeon, things like pain medications get prescribed. Things like lower back surgeries to deal with chronic lower back pain get prescribed and performed, when in fact, maybe a little talk therapy would be a good place to start. And so we think there's an opportunity for people to actually save money on healthcare by making these benefits more affordable and accessible. We haven't proven that yet. We're building a really interesting data set right now that's going to demonstrate here's what happens when you eliminate all the obstacles to the mental health care system. But even if it doesn't save people money on healthcare, it sure feels like the right thing to do.
Totally. And I'm very interested in this example that you gave in one of our conversations before this about back pain.
Yeah.
And, okay, your back hurts. What happens? You try to stretch it out. You try to work it out. It's getting worse. Go to a doctor. Doctor just gives you whatever, ibuprofen or some sort of pain pill. And can you explain a little bit about this and how they diagnose that and how that could be something else?
Yeah. Well, so, typically what you described is exactly what happens. If you got lower back pain and you go to an orthopedic surgeon, for the most part, what a surgeon does is they cut, right? If they see someone with back pain, they say, I know how to fix that. Let's do a surgery. And that's what they go do. In the really good physician practices and the ones we really like to have as part of our network, we don't require people to go to a primary care physician first, but we sure encourage it. And we think that free primary care benefit has something to do with that. The best practice is actually integrate mental health care services into primary care. So, even though a primary care physician isn't a mental health professional, they're certainly capable of doing a screening, a brief screening for anxiety in a primary care visit and saying back to you, the patient, hey, have you ever talked to anybody about your anxiety? Before they say, here's a great orthopedic surgeon or here's a pain med that I would like you to try. So, those are those are some of the things that physicians are starting to do in a very creative and thoughtful way, and in a way that's much more holistic and treats the whole person, not just a symptom or an illness.
Totally. And it's just that awareness, and you guys are helping people have more awareness of the root issue, not just giving that Band-Aid effect. I want to talk a little bit about anxiety. I told you I'd throw some curveballs, some softballs at you. Everybody here probably has caffeine consumption. If you're watching this, raise your hand if you drink coffee. You're probably drinking coffee right now on this. How do you deal with your anxiety and how do you manage that? What's your relationship with caffeine? For me, I try to keep it underneath 2 cups a day. If I go above 2 cups, my eye starts twitching and I think the sky is falling. So I try to cultivate that mindfulness on how much caffeine I'm taking in. And I'm just curious, how do you deal with that world and anxiety and also the relationship to caffeine, which I think a lot of people can resonate with.
Yeah. So you may be asking the wrong guy the wrong question on caffeine. I love caffeine. I find it to be
How much coffee you drink every day?
It's a really productive drug for me. And, 4 or 5 espressos a day is pretty normal for me. And, I know for me, my energy level starts kind of low in the morning, increases as the day goes on. And so caffeine helps me level that out a little bit. By 2 in the afternoon, I'm full speed and have no interest or need for caffeine, between then and bedtime. But in the morning, I find it to be super useful. In terms of dealing with my own anxiety, again, some of the things I talked about before, if I need to get from one headspace to another, whether it's going for a bike ride or playing the piano, are techniques that I can use. But a lot of times, when I'm anxious, it's because we have a problem to solve. And working directly on solving that problem, I know is the best medicine for me. If I can find a solution to this, or I can find a pathway to a solution for it, I'm going to sleep a little bit better tonight. I just know that about myself and how I process tough situations. But again, that doesn't always work. Sometimes that turns into I'm beating my head against the desk, staring at the same problem over and over again and not getting any closer. So I'm going to have to try something different. And again, fortunately, I've got a couple of different pathways to get through that. But that's usually where the anxiety happens for me. Is I have a problem that I'm not going to be able to sleep very well until I feel like I'm on a path towards a solution. The other kind of anxiety for me is, sometimes things are overwhelming. Sometimes the to-do list is just too damn long and it's getting longer rather than shorter. And, I've got to find other ways to make that to-do list shorter if I'm going to sleep well tonight. Fortunately, Friday is now, we're no longer a startup of 6 or 7 people. We're a company where I've got a lot of teammates and a lot of partners and people who, when my to-do list is too long, I can ask them I can offload some of that on them. And likewise, when their to-do list is too long, they can offload some of that to me. So, having really good partners and having that sort of trusting relationship where we can share the load goes a long way. And we're fortunate to be in that position. But it's really hard to do that when you're in pure startup mode. There is no one to hand off to.
Totally. And I just wrote down on my notes here, what does this mean? So you experienced some anxiety, and for you, it seems to be an indicator.
Yeah.
Because for a lot of people, they experience, so you had that ability to be mindful of the anxiety and ask yourself, what does that mean? How can I deal with this? For a lot of people, anxiety comes and it just consumes and it's kind of crushing. And I'm curious as to how did you get to that point where you started to see anxiety arrive within yourself, and you started to understand that that's an indicator to point towards a problem. How did you come to that conclusion and not just have anxiety just crush you?
Yeah, I've never been, I'm fortunate that I don't think I've ever been in that situation where I've gotten to the point where I'm crushed by anxiety. I've been more to the point where I'm really annoyed by it. And so for me, it's really knowing that I've got a couple of situations that aren't going to end well. And one of the things I can do is I'm getting into that situation to avoid it, right? How can I look at the calendar and look at the sort of the things that need to get done and realize I'm about to be in a situation where I'm overwhelmed and headed off before it happens.
So you're very proactive about it. I love that. And I think you're the perfect person to have this kind of chat with about resilience, because you have to have a very, very, very thick skin, high level of resilience to do the startup world. Because I mean, to scale from 3 people to 6 people to a whole company, it's extremely difficult, and all the odds are against you. And if you can be aware of your mental wellness in that process, that's going to give you such a competitive advantage. So that's why we're having this talk, is to bring more awareness of mental wellness. And speaking of awareness and mental wellness, you guys have a lot of advertising on this free mental wellness services. And I'm very curious, how do you grow that awareness? What kind of strategies are you guys using? And what kind of wording are you using for mental wellness? Can you tell us a little bit about that, please?
Yeah, in general at Friday, we do try to take a slightly lighter approach to healthcare and health insurance than other health insurers might. Not that we don't take it seriously, but everyone has a mental health issue sometime. And we think it's really important to kind of normalize that experience. You know, it's very easy when you're dealing with anxiety or depression or anything else to think, I'm alone. I'm the only one who's ever felt this way, and there's no way out of it. And the reality is everybody's been there. And if they haven't been there, they're going to be there. And so, you know, we take a lot of care in our marketing materials and our member education materials just to take a little bit of that stigma out and try to normalize it a little bit. You know, we had a little bit of fun last year promoting some of our mental health care benefits and services. You know, some of our video spots that we'd put together, you know, we showed a family that had been in lockdown together for the last year, and everyone had lost their mind, either a little bit or a lot. And, you know, the punchline is, you know, you're going to need some mental health care. And with Friday, it's easy. But so it's fine to use humor, but the real point is that we are trying to lighten this a little bit and normalize a little bit, because, you know, needing to see somebody over a mental health care issue is incredibly normal, and there's no shame with it at all.
What kind of wording do you guys use in some of your advertising campaigns to raise awareness for mental wellness services?
You know, I'm trying to think of what some of the wording is. You know, we had a campaign last year that said, you know, whoever told you the laughter is the best medicine never experienced COVID, or whoever told you the laughter is the best medicine was never locked down with my family. So those are examples of it. You know, they're not that focused on healthcare. Actually, they're more focused on kind of personal experiences and what individuals and families might be dealing with.
Yeah. There's a saying from a gentleman, Ram Dass. People may or not know who he was, but it goes, if you think you're enlightened, go spend a week with your family.
Exactly.
Get locked up in that room. So something that we often use in corporate mindfulness training is just showing the dynamic environment of where mental wellness is and where it's going. We rewind and go back 60 years ago. If you saw me, depending on what I'm wearing, if you saw me running down the street, you would say, what is he running from? But now, depending on what I'm wearing, if I'm wearing a jogging outfit and not a suit, you'll say, he's jogging. That's good.
Yeah.
Like, good for him. So this is very, very new physical exercise. If you zoom out on how long we've been around, for thousands and thousands and thousands of years, we had a more labor-intensive society. But now, just past 55, 60 years, if you exercise, that's good. That's something that you feel that it's just something that you feel like you ought to do. And if you don't do it, you feel a little guilty. So we feel that the same thing is happening with the wellness industry.
Yeah, it's a really good analogy.
Yeah, and more specifically, the mindfulness industry is basically, as a species, we figured out if you stop once a day and just sit there and watch your mind, it's extremely useful for you. Or get on a bike and you can watch your mind there, or go for a run. When you're on the bike, just be on the bike. When you're going for a run, just go on for the run. The startup culture, the performance culture, it's like, let's go on the bike. Let's listen to an audiobook. But it's so helpful, as you said, David, to get that silence. It's very, very, very important.
And challenging. Not a place that you necessarily want to go or want to be, but necessary. You know,
correct.
I wanted to ask you.
Go ahead.
Yeah. I want to ask you, because you've been asking me a lot of questions, but I'm super curious about what you do and how this works. When I think about, you know, mindfulness in a corporate culture, like, I wouldn't even know where to start if I were to look at my leadership team and my business partners and say, how are we using mindfulness or not using mindfulness as a team? How do you actually begin that process of assessing the role of mindfulness in a culture?
So it's all about the language, David. What we see is that there are two fundamental factors for your performance and for your life: your time and your attention. And everything and everybody is trying to steal that from you. You know what I mean? It's a finite resource, and you're running out of time, and you only have so much attention and bandwidth per day. And basic mindfulness training is protecting that. And that's how we really boil it down, that our attention affects our choices affect our actions, and our actions affect our results. Does that make sense? So there's a direct correlation with high attention and high results. And that's how we bring people into that world of mindfulness training, and also the stress reduction benefits of it. We have to have our ability to focus on what we need to focus on and have that self-awareness to know when we need to slow down. Because there's this belief that more input equals more output. You and me both know that that's not true.
Yeah.
Absolutely not.
Well,
So,
and it sounds
really
like
the language.
You see enough sort of discrete steps in the process that there are ways you can actually test and measure, how are we doing at this stage of the process? How are we doing at this stage? Aha, we see people are making bad choices here or no choices at all. This is where we need to focus in. Is that kind of how you assess and begin to work with companies?
Absolutely. So
Yeah.
we're measuring people's focus. We're measuring people's stress. We're measuring people with the retention rate at their companies. It costs a lot more to rehire and retrain somebody because they're not burning out. And we really want to be as proactive as possible with that, and also with creativity and innovation. So that's a very, very key factor that we're using whenever we're bringing in mindfulness to corporations is where are we at right now? Where do we want to be? And where's the growth been along the way? And we try to infuse the organization with internal champions that can also bring mindfulness within the organization as well. It's a different world of leadership now. You have people, business professionals that are in their 30s, that it's not this classic high power distance culture where the boss is in a box and you can't really contact that person. Now it's more open. Leaders need autonomy, mastery, and purpose. And mindfulness training and emotional intelligence training allows the leaders to have more empathy and to have more compassion with their teams. And that helps a lot with preventing burnout, really understanding. It's instead of saying your numbers aren't right, what's going on? Like, why aren't your numbers right? If you don't get your numbers right, this is going to happen. Compared to, hey, your numbers aren't right. What's going on? Is everything okay?
Yeah.
And opening up that conversation, and you have to really have a certain type of leader to do that. So that's one of the things that we're infusing into organizations and making those conversations much easier.
Yeah. We worry about burnout given, that our business can at times, that the high growth rate of our business can sometimes be a high wire act, and we don't want our people to fall off the high wire. What are some of the early indicators of burnout that you guys look for or screen for when you're looking at a team?
Just stress, lack of sleep, inability to focus, loss of passion, loss of the big picture. You're just feeling drained. One of the things that we train is called cultivating beginner's mind, or as Jay-Z, which he probably got it from somebody else. He said, I treat my first like my last and my last like my first.
Yeah.
And having that beginner's mind, you remember when you really started Friday Health Plans, when I really started Modern Mindfulness, and that beautiful vision that you had, and you just get bogged down. You're trying to zoom out and really remember that and see where we've been, where we're going, and what is it we're really trying to do here? What is the problem that we're trying to solve for society? So I always recommend people to try to identify any kind of stress early on. And that starts with a very, very simple mindfulness practice of some breathing, checking in, purposeful silence. But if you can catch it before it happens, you're going to be much better off. That's very, very important.
Oh yeah, we've all seen that or experienced it. That once that burnout happens, that could be a one-way street. Sometimes there's no coming back from that, or it's a very long time until that person is back to the place where they can be kind of their best self, either in the company or not.
Yeah. So it's really when it amounts to is the language. So I never forget one of my best friends who just moved to Colombia. His name's RJ. That's short for Recon John. He's a U.S. vet. He was in the Iraq War.
Yeah.
And he was first introduced to meditation as tactile breathing, or sorry, tactical breathing.
Yeah.
So you're getting shot at. What the hell are you supposed to do? Take a breath.
Yeah.
You're under fire. The enemy's coming, and the competitor's coming towards you. They're knocking on your door. You got loans to pay. You're in debt. What's the first thing you do? Take a breath, reassess, recalibrate, and then move forward. So the frame of mental wellness and the words of mental wellness, we believe, is so incredibly important. And that's a great segue to a question I have for you is, how the hell do you conquer the taboo of mental health?
Yeah. Here's the good news. It seems like some of the stigma and taboo around mental health is generational, and that, people who are younger than me coming up, it's already destigmatized. A lot of our younger adult customers don't have a primary care physician necessarily, but do have a relationship with a therapist. And, this is just a practice they learned early and something that's already fairly normalized for them. So I would say that, in the 35 and under group, it's not as big a problem as it is for the 35 and older group. For the 35 and older group, again, what we can do is, let's try to normalize this a little bit. Maybe we can use humor. Maybe we can use other techniques, but we got to remind people that whatever you're going through, you might feel like you're alone. You might feel like you're different or going through something that no one has ever gone through before, but it's not true. People all around you have either gone through what you're going through or are going to go through what you're going through. And it's okay to talk to friends about it. And it's okay to seek help from a professional. But just continue to remind people that, it's just your health. It's not there's nothing wrong with dealing with a mental health issue. Is something we can do as a health insurance company.
Yeah. So it seems like a big key theme is empathy and understanding that you're not alone.
Yeah.
Is that right?
And that's true in everything that we do. We work very hard to make sure that everybody who answers a phone or answers an email or answers a text at Friday Health Plan starts from a place of empathy. We think we're fortunate that we have a skill there, and that, we're working to kind of, as we grow, not lose that skill. We do a lot of things differently at Friday Health Plans than other health insurers do, whether it's the benefit or the network or the pricing or the marketing. But the thing that health insurers do poorly, and we think they'll continue to do poorly, is caring and empathy for the people who are calling on the phone. And if we can be good at that and continue to be good at that as we grow, that'll make us a health insurance company like no other health insurance company you've ever seen before. We actually think it's the strategic differentiator that's gonna pay for itself, for as long as this is a company. So it's incredibly important for us, not just in mental health care, but in really any interaction we can have with any one of our customers. And you got to realize, when someone calls their health insurance company on the phone, it ain't for fun. It's not because they're trying to buy a new pair of shoes, or, they ordered a green pair of shoes and got a blue pair of shoes and want them back. Yeah. They're dealing with something, right. or maybe dealing with something on behalf of a loved one or a family member. And, being there for them, being able to listen, being able to respond with at least a little bit of empathy, and then help them solve that problem and confirm that, we've done everything we can do for them by the end of that call, is just a core tenet of how we run our business. And, we think it makes us different. We think we can get significantly better at it. And, we get the feedback we get from Friday Health Plans members is, I've never had a phone call like that with a health insurance company before. And we're delighted every time we hear it.
You're going to sign me up, man. I'm ready.
Yeah.
I'm ready. One of the things at Modern Mindfulness that we've been practicing, and our small team is expanding. I'm so grateful for that.
Yeah.
To see that grow up. We recently took on a new sales director, and she worked for a luxury brand, LVMH. You familiar? Yeah. And I'm not knocking LVMH. I don't know anything about those guys. But one of the reasons why she left was because of burnout. Yeah. It was because of resilience and not being able to cultivate that and infuse that in the culture. And when she came to modern mindfulness, one of the first things that we said is that we take performance breaks. At 3 p.m., we take a 15-minute break. I encourage you, go outside the office, walk around, get some sunlight, move, practice purposeful silence. And that's just so important. And she was kind of like really surprised by this and the culture. And I really think that from the leadership down, that needs to be infused in the culture of mental wellness and these things of performance break and empathy and having these open conversations and just really just infusing that on all levels of the culture. Just wrapping up, and we've got a little bit more time, and I knew I wasn't going to be able to ask all the questions that I wanted, but there are a couple more. And I definitely want to ask you that hardball question as well.
Sure.
But here's the key question: is for you and your team, how do you help those guys build resilience?
Yeah. It's not an easy thing to do, and there's not a short answer to it. I would say I have a couple thoughts on it. I would say, first of all, in terms of personally building resilience, there's no substitute for experience. And that, what I mean by that is, when I run into an obstacle today, there's a good chance I've seen it before or seen an obstacle like it before. And, with enough experience, I know I've got 1 or 2 or 3 different ways to get through. And if that doesn't work, I'll go for a bike ride and see if I can figure it out that way. Right. So, but, 25 years ago, I might've only had one way through that. And that is stay up all night and stare at it or something like that. And so, just with time and with good habits, you can't help but build resilience, and you can't help but build out your tool set and your curiosity and all the different methods you might have for solving a problem. I would say when I think about this company specifically, a lot of the obstacles we ran into, we overcame them because we were confident in what we were doing. And that sounds like a really simple thing, but it's really not. So, some of the obstacles we ran into when we were starting and building this business were, let's say, legislative obstacles, a law change, someone got elected who wanted to undo the Affordable Care Act, any one of those things. And there were the gut check moments where we had to sit down as a team and say, well, this is going to be difficult, and we're not really sure how we're going to get through it. Do we believe in what we're doing? Is this still a good idea? Are there still 20 million people out there who need a better health insurance experience, regardless of what's happening in Washington or Austin or Denver? Like, yeah, we do believe in this. I'm like, okay, so let's keep going. But, we may need to modify our approach. We may need to bring down our burn rate because we got to make our capital last longer. We may need to reassess what states are good states for Friday health plans to go into. We may need to be stronger in this part of the business to get through this obstacle. So, going from that sort of scared, we've got this insurmountable obstacle in front of us, confirming that we still think we're doing the right thing and we still want to do it together, to, all right, now what's going to happen next? And, be in a sort of a rational problem solving mode is a big part of it.
Totally. I got one more question for you. We got about 2 minutes left. Are you ready?
Yeah.
I'm going to give my own little answer, and then make sure you link how people can find more information about you, and I'll do the same for me. What about the legacy, man? When it's all said and done, what do you want to leave behind?
I have a really hard time answering that for myself. I don't know what's going to go on my epitaph. But I'll speak for Friday Health Plans. We see a big problem and a big challenge in the U.S. healthcare system, and we think we can make a really big difference in it. We know in our community here in Colorado, we've already made a difference. We're helping people save money on healthcare and have a better healthcare experience every day, and that feels great. But there are 49 more states we got to get to, and we're working our way through them. But one of the ways I think about it, how do we know when we're done and how we feel about it when we get there, is when we're doing this in every community in the United States, everybody has access to a Friday Health Plans product. That's going to feel pretty good. And that will be a big goal of the business. The question for us at that point will be, well, what's next? Who else could use a Friday Health Plans? Do seniors need a Friday Health Plan? Do people who are in the Medicaid program need a Friday Health Plan? And so, we'll have some interesting decisions to make when we get there. But those are sort of legacies we think about as a company and that we feel good about. And then the one other big one, and this one's a little bit weird, is, we think that the employer-sponsored health insurance model in the United States is something that needs to change pretty radically. And we'd really like to be a part of changing that. And so if 5 or 10 years from now, we can look back and say Friday was one of the catalysts to helping people get off of an employer health benefit and into something they chose for themselves and really wanted, that would be a really good thing here in America. And so that's another thing we look at. It's unclear exactly how and when it's going to happen or how we're going to influence it, but it's on our mind a lot and we think about it a lot.
Beautiful, man. Well said. For us, we just want to make mental wellness cool.
Yeah.
That's our brand, Modern Mindfulness. We're trying to make it more palatable, more accessible for people, and that's what we're all about.
I love
David,
it. Yeah.
Thank you, man. Well, it's such a pleasure and honor to speak to such a real entrepreneur like yourself and a real leader like yourself. David, if people want to find more information about you and your organization, where can they go?
Check us out at FridayHealthPlans.com. Easy to find.
All right. And for us, it's modernmindfulness.com. David, it was a pleasure and an honor. Thank you so much, man. I'll see you around. Thank you for the work you're doing. Guys, Thank you so much for watching this stream. Really appreciate it. And Tony, we're going to hand it back to you.
Well, thank you so much, Brandon. Thank you so much, David. David, if you ever are in Fort Worth, Texas, and you want to go on a bike ride with me, I would love to have a bike ride with you so we can solve some other problems to address the social determinants of health, especially loneliness. Brandon, I love how you just ended it and said, like, mental wellness needs to be cool. And I can tell you that while growing up in the city of Chicago, we never addressed that in grammar and high school. Now we are. And I think that we're progressing in the right path. Well, thank you so much, guys. And I really think you guys are amazing.
Hey, thank you, everybody. Really appreciate it.
I'm going to be introducing our second session, which is our sound bath. A sound bath is a meditative experience using a combination of singing bowls, tuning forks, gongs, and other overtone-emitting instruments, which play in perfect harmony to alleviate stress and provide deep meditation. These sounds assist in a downshift of the nervous system, creating therapeutic and restorative conditions for the mind and body. Headphones are highly recommended for the best sound experience. Find a cozy and a quiet space to be without distractions and plan to stay there for the duration of the sound bath. I know I have my headphones ready. We're thrilled to be joined by Shanila Sitar, an Austin-based integrative wellness leader, a fourth-generation sound healer, breathwork coach, women's researcher, national speaker, mentor, and the founder of Always Play Studios and the Integrative Healing Academy. Shanila spent 12 years in tech and women's research before navigating to a world where the scientist and the mystic and her met each other. So let's bring up Shanila. Hey, Shanila.
Hi, Tony.
Thanks here. We're really excited for this.
Thank you. Thank you for the introduction, and I'll take it from here.
Yeah, go ahead.
Hi, friends. Thanks, Tony, for introducing me. I'm Shanila. I'm based in Austin. I'm a sound healer and the founder of Always Play Studios, where I play sound baths, mentor healers, and also coach breathwork. And so by the show of typing it in the chat, let me know if this is anybody's first sound bath or if this is somebody, if you've never experienced a sound bath before. And in the meantime, I'll let you know that you can experience a sound bath laying down, seated up. You can lean against a wall. You can bring your kitties, your blankets, be as comfortable as you can, because we'll be here for about 20 minutes in the actual sound bath portion. Okay. And so what's happening here is I'm playing crystal singing bowls that are tuned to specific frequencies that help you get into deep states of meditation. So in this wellness track, we're talking about, activating our rest. We're talking about activating our, resiliency, but what is it? How good are we actually resting in our body? So the sound bath actually helps trick your brain into going into something known as the theta state, which is a deep restorative meditative brain state where you get all the benefits of meditation. You get the better sleep, the better mood, the better focus, the better clarity, the better energy, all the good stuff. And I always call this is like the cheater's way to meditate. So if you think you're really bad at meditating, or you have to like shut up your mind to meditate, this will get you there without you having to do all the hard work. All right. And so during a sound bath, you might experience a couple of different things. You might experience some heat energy moving through your body. You might feel some tingling sensations. You might feel some numbness, some cold energy moving through. You might also fall asleep, which is okay, but your brain is still listening to the sounds, even if you do fall into rest and relaxation. So a few different ways to experience this is, one, you can have a really active meditation. I'll be guiding you with my voice and the sounds, and you can really focus on your breath and follow along in that way. Or you could have a really passive meditation, meaning you just lay back and just see what the sounds are going to do for you. All right. It's going to be restorative for you either way. And so with all of that said, I'm going to invite you to put on headphones. Just the way that I'm streaming the sound is just a better quality in headphones. So if you have some headphones you can pop on, that'll be nice. But if not, that's fine too. And find a cozy place to be. Seated, laying, blankets are all nice. All right. So once you get there, go ahead and take a deep breath in with me. In through your nose. And exhale. Big exhale. And then just shake out your body a little bit. Shake out your shoulders. Shake out your hips, shake out your ribs, kind of get a little bit of movement in the body. And on this next breath, go ahead and rub your hands together, get some heat energy going, breathing in through your nose. And as you exhale this time, shake. Just shaking out. Good, 2 more, just like that. Big deep breath in, rub your hands together, get some fire energy going. And we are in this new moon right now, which disturbs a lot of sleep. So sound baths are really perfect for activating your sleep. And then exhale, go. One more time. Rub. Inhale. And exhale, shake it out. Bring your hands wherever it feels nice. Maybe on your lap or by your side. Maybe on your belly, maybe on your chest. Wherever feels nice for you. And go ahead and begin to close your eyes. And just arrive here. Arrive in your space. Arrive in your body. And notice how you feel today. Notice the sounds, the textures, the sensations that are around you. Notice the thoughts that are floating through your mind. Say yes thoughts, I see you thoughts, thank you thoughts. Come back to your breath, breathing in through your nose. And exhale. Begin to relax your body. Relax your toes and your ankles. Relax your calves and your shins. Relax. Relax your knees, breathing in through your nose and out through your mouth. Relax your thighs and your hips. Relax your lower back and your belly. Relax. Relax your upper back and your chest. Breathing in through your nose. And out through your mouth. Relax your shoulders, your arms, your forearms, all the way down to your fingertips. Relax. Relax your neck and your throat. Relax your jaw. Relax your lips and your tongue. Relax. Relax your cheeks and your nose. Relax your ears. Relax your eyes and your eyebrows. Relax your forehead. Relax the top of your head. Breathing in and out. Relax from the top of your head all the way down to your feet. Relax. Nowhere to be. Nothing to see. Just to be here. Gently surround your entire body in a golden ball of light. From the top of your head, your face, the center of your body, all the way down to your feet, a beautiful golden ball of light. And as you breathe in, allow this light to gently enter in through your nose, spinning and spiraling open every single cell in your body. And as you exhale, let this light carry away anything you don't need right now. This beautiful golden light, allowing it to bring in peace, calm, relaxation, and rest. And as you exhale, let go. Unclenching your face, relaxing your jaw, dropping your shoulders, dropping your back. Relax your hips, all the way down to your feet. Relax. Allowing this golden light gently dance into your body, spinning, spiraling open every single cell, helping you cleanse and relax, helping you recalibrate. On your next breath, find yourself somewhere in nature. Maybe you're at the beach, at the ocean, or in the forest with the trees. Perhaps the desert or the snow. Wherever it is, arrive. And while you're in the space, go ahead and look around. Notice the sights. Notice the sounds. The textures and the sensations. Notice the feeling. Breathing in. And out. Closing out this time in nature, thanking the earth for supporting you, bringing yourself back with this golden light surrounding your whole body. Letting it hug you with every breath you take in, feeling a sense of calm and peace. And with every exhale, a release. Closing out your practice today by taking a deep breath in through your nose, filling up your whole body, filling up your belly, filling up your chest, and exhaling out with a big sigh. Two more just like that. Big deep breath in through your nose, filling up all the way. And exhale, let go. Deep breath in. Exhale, send it out. Gently bringing both your hands on your heart or your belly, wherever feels nice, somewhere on your body, to take a moment to receive. Tuning in back to your breath, feeling your heartbeat, feeling the temperature of your body. And whenever you're ready, we'll take 3 deep breaths together, in through our nose and out through the mouth. In through the nose and out. Last one. Big deep breath in and send it out. Gently bringing your arms down. Beginning to wiggle your fingers, wiggle your toes, move your shoulders side to side, take a big stretch to the side, take a big stretch up, take a stretch to the front, and taking all the time you need, blinking your eyes open, bringing your awareness back to the room, back to the body. And while you come back here, I'll let you know how to take care of yourself after doing a sound meditation. We moved around a lot of energy in the body, and even though the sounds are not playing anymore, they're still being listened to by your brain. So you might feel a little bit of difference in the next couple of days, actually, So you might notice your sleep being a little bit different, your mood, the way that you are, your energy levels, your dream worlds might be a little bit different. And I highly recommend that you do something grounding for yourself before you head into the next part of the programming, whether it's just simply really quickly putting your feet on the ground. If you can't make it outside, just putting your feet on the ground to ground back down to your body. Drink some water, tons of water to just flush around any of the toxins that are moving around. And then hot tea, I know it's hot in Austin, that's where I am too, but some hot tea will allow yourself to ground back into your body. Okay, and if you want to connect with me, I'm Shanila Sattar. You can find me on alwaysplay.org. And thank you for having me, and I will see you next time.
Thank you so much, Shanila, for that amazing sound bath. We were able to activate our rest and our resiliency. So just like she mentioned, please drink some water and some hot tea. I know that I like hot green tea, so thank you so much for this amazing activity. So let me go ahead, introduce our session, our final session, which is Shit Happens, Bereavement, Burnout, and the Difficult Conversations. 60% of employees have access to paid bereavement leave through their employers, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. And that is usually only about 2 to 3 days off, not always with pay. A new study from US researchers found that about 9 people are impacted by the loss of a single person. Couple that with outdated employee assistance program and box checking diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives, and the loss of normalcy during a global pandemic, and suddenly that place you spend the most of your time can feel foreign. In this chat with Cara McCarthy, co-founder of CodePilot and VP of HR at Cognite, and Christina Wells, VP of People at Plano, Cara will share her story of how she navigated the uncomfortable discussion about reducing hours and pay to spend the last 16 weeks with her mom before she died. Meanwhile, Christina will share her insights as a colleague, employer, and mom fighting burnout and creating safe spaces for difficult conversation. All right, let's bring them up. Hi, Cara. Hi, Christina.
Hi. Hello.
Cara, I am so sorry for your loss. I actually lost my grandma 5 years ago. And that's the reason why I actually packed up my life from Detroit, Michigan, and I moved to Texas because she was the last one. I was really attached to, so it's kind of lonely. So I sympathize, and thank you so much for leading this conversation.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that story. You would be maybe surprised or not surprised to know how many people are affected by loss and grief that some people share with us and some people don't share with us. And so thank you so much. I think hopefully Christina and I are going to be able to sit down and share with the folks listening on the call this idea of creating a safe space, right? And navigating challenges and life events, unexpected, like the loss of a parent, or expected grief challenges, like balancing work and life, having a new baby, a stressful move. There are so many types of these anxiety and grief producing events that we are all going to go through in our lives. And so we really, Christine and I, want to have a discussion, kind of a fireside chat, if you will, around these types of life events, and maybe bring a few different perspectives to the discussion around our individual journeys, also the lens of the employer, and also maybe highlight some local startups that we think are truly paving the way in some of these areas. So we're really happy to be here.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I will let you go ahead and start.
Cool. Thank you. Awesome. Hi, Christina.
Hi there.
I'm so glad you were able to join me today.
Yeah. It's great to be here.
Cool.
Austin Startup Week is a really great time to share ideas and thoughts, and it's going to be great.
Yeah. I will briefly introduce myself, and then I'll hand it over to you, and we can get that out of the way. So I am a founder and a people /HR operator. My focus has really been on that sweet spot of scaling startups from their early stages into exits. Companies like CodePilot, which was my own company We were acquired by AngelList, World First, which was a fintech company, scale and grew them into an acquisition in the Retail Me Not, where you and I met, where we went through that IPO journey, right? So that is for me the lens of that scale of how do you scale companies and build the people programs, from 0 to 1,000. Currently, I'm the vice president of HR at Cognite. We're a global data ops company that really helps the full scale transformation and digitalization of our heavy asset industry customers. In addition to that, I help invest in local startups through a platform called The Fund Austin. And I mentor new founders on all things hiring, scaling, growing, and culture at the Founders Institute. So not busy at all, but I love what I do. I love the startup ecosystem. I'm so happy to be a part of Startup Week because it's so much a part of what I love to do. As I promised the group, we would chat about also our personal stories. I'm planning a wedding, which is really exciting. I'm, considering a remodel, also very exciting. But for anyone, these are stress-inducing events, and balancing those types of things, I'm excited to kind of dive into today. But I will hand it over to you, Christina, where you and I obviously met at Retail Me Not back in 2013, I think, maybe, or 14.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to be here with you today, and would love to have you, give an overview to the group a little bit about yourself.
Yes. Hello, everybody. I'm Christina Wells, as Kara had mentioned, and Kara and I have known each other since 2013 from Retail Me Not. But a little bit about my background. I am also an HR leader in the Austin startup space. I moved to Austin. Who is an Austin native? Not a lot of folks. I'm one of those transplants. Didn't come far. I came from Dallas. I moved here in 2008. I started my career in recruiting, and then Austin was calling me for technical recruiting, and I've worked for several recruiting agencies over the years in leadership positions. Like Kara mentioned, was there when Retail Me Not had their IPO, so kind of like scaling up, fast-paced recruiting, getting all the great talent so we can have an amazing journey there, and then went on to another startup called Modernize and worked there for 4.5 years. And then they have been through an acquisition. And then now I'm currently the VP of People, and I sit on the executive team for a company called Plano. And we are a social media planning tool, mobile app and web application to help small businesses and entrepreneurs, probably a lot like y'all, out there with their social media planning needs. And very exciting to be to be here with this like dynamic team. There's about 50 of us, and I'm enjoying it every day. In addition to my full-time job, I also sit on the board of advisors. I'm a real big lover of startups and entrepreneurship. I'm on the board of advisors for a Austin-based startup in town called Flow Recruit. They are in the legal recruiting space, actually started through kind of Capital Factory and things like that. So that was really exciting. I kind of joined as their mentor several years ago to the CEO and the CTO, and then now on the advisory board. And then I also am on the advisory board for a company not based in Austin, but a really wonderful tech company called Amelia. They are in the, coincidentally, the mindfulness and wellness space. They have a lot of really great products and features from the B2B side. Trusted brands like Carta and things like that use them around making sure that we are all taking care of one another with different mindfulness and breathing activities and sleep and things like that. It's really wonderful. I'm also involved in nonprofits. And gosh, outside of all of that, I'm also a mom, a working mom with what sounds like a lot of jobs, but I have 2 beautiful little boys, 4 and 6 years old. And that's my most important job and my most passionate job, I would say. So that comes first, and then everything else I said is a close second. But yeah, I'm glad to be here today.
Not busy at all, right?
No,
not busy at all. Have nothing going on. No stress-inducing events on your side. Wow, Christina, thanks for sharing. Hopefully that's relatable to some folks that are juggling full-time jobs and passion projects and life and outside of the home and all of those sorts of things, right? I think is a equal opportunity for everyone to experience. So thanks for sharing. I want us to dive right into this idea of grief. And I want to say from the beginning, I think as I share my story around losing my mom, that grief can be associated with loss, but not only death. And so if you haven't actually lost a loved one, you still might be experiencing grief, right? And so I wanted to say that up front, that grief, in my opinion, and Christina, feel free to chime in, can be a wide variety of scenarios, from everything caused from the pandemic, like isolation due to COVID, where we're grieving our coworkers, right? Or that type of relationship, or we have lost a pet, or we have lost a loved one, or we've gone through the loss of potentially a divorce. There are so many different life events, I think, that are associated with grief, that maybe we'll touch on a few of those. But I want to start by sharing a story from maybe about 10 or 15 years ago. I was an intern at a company, and I found myself crying in the supplies closet. It's not glamorous. This is a vulnerable conversation, so we are sharing some really personal stories. But I had just gone through a breakup, and at that time, I was thinking to myself, I am going through something. I am grieving, but I'm worried that my employer is going to find out. Are they going to make me leave work? Are they going to be supportive? It was a really, I'd say, unnerving time where I was trying to balance going to work every day and that feeling. And I think fast forward to now, we are having the conversations at work. We are creating supportive environments. We are bringing our whole selves to work. And so I love seeing the shift and the dynamic into today's world. I think we've done a lot of stuff, and you and I will go into that. But my mom passed away in 2016. At the time, I was an HR director for a really young new startup. I think we had maybe 20 people at the time. I was tasked with like charging and scaling up the team. And I had been supportive of other people going through life event and short-term disability and all these things, but I had never personally been on that side of the table. And, for those HR people on the call, we knew that family medical leave, FMLA, is eligible for companies over the size of 50 people. And you have to have been working there for a certain amount of time. Well, we didn't qualify. So I was in a situation where we've never had this. We didn't have the materials. We didn't have some of the programs. And I was navigating the really uncomfortable conversations around, oh my gosh, my mom has just been diagnosed with a really aggressive form of cancer. They've given her, some weeks to live. I mean, but I just bought a new house. How am I going to have to quit my job? Can I reduce my pay? Can I reduce my hours? Do I have a company that can support that? And it was really challenging. I would say we didn't have any policies or process in place, being a new startup. And as the one that would put that in place, I was on the other side of that table. Yeah. And it was really challenging. I mean, it was challenging on the employer side, and it was challenging on the personal side. I made the tough decision to stay with my mom. I say tough decision, but also an easy decision to be able to stay with my mom at all costs during that period in her life. And it has really fueled the passion to the companies that I'm at today to make sure that we have really comprehensive leave guidelines, really supportive, comprehensive leave guidelines. And, my situation isn't unique. There have been over 700,000, I think, deaths just attributed to COVID in the last, 12 to 24 months alone. And people are going through this. And I think as Tony mentioned, not everyone has access to bereavement leave, maybe around 60%. And also statistically, 9 people are impacted by the loss of someone. And when you compound that multiplier, you're like, oh my gosh, wow. This is something really that is on a large scale impacting our workforce of today. I want to kind of dive in and I'm going to ask you some questions too, Christina, but I want to dive into a couple different areas. How on the individual side can we navigate this, right? But then on the employer side, what can we do to have process and policy and create that safe space in a couple different phases? I think about it in 3 kind of phases. One is that planning phase, right? So my mom, she was going through this end of her life period. And I was thinking, okay, what do I need to plan for? What are the steps that I need to take? More logistical around how do I support her? How do I support myself? How do I continue working part-time? How do I make sure that her assets, and we created all of these steps and planning phases that is such a huge piece of the process, right? I think that's a really interesting thing to dive into. I think the at-need support, so that emotional support, that hey, I'm going through something at this exact moment. I'm burying my mom this week, or whatever that is for different people. Like that I think is also an interesting topic. And then coming back into work. What does that look like? And how is that different for people? And as an employer, how can we support different transition plans and coming back into the office and supporting different needs of different people at different times? And so that's kind of how I want to look at this and the lens of bereavement leave and grief. But I want to get your perspective too, Christina. What do you think at Plano that on the employer side are kind of good tips or processes or tricks that you're doing or you're seeing in this space and in kind of the elder care, senior care, bereavement leave, that kind of end of life process? Like, what are you guys doing?
Yeah, I mean, I have a lot of thoughts and opinions about it. I checked our handbook yesterday, and we do not have a formal bereavement policy, which, yes, it's my responsibility to decide if we put that in there or not. Sure. I mean, I'm the type of HR leader, and we are, to disclaimer, again, we're a small tech company of a little bit less than 50. And so there are some folks on the call that might be much larger and need those very, I guess, documented process. There might be a lot of folks on here that are startups like us that don't yet. And I just kind of lead HR and people of we are a culture of trust and responsibility, just like the famous Netflix deck by Patty McCord and such of we trust first and know that people aren't there to take advantage of any type of leave allowances, but like what you said of the planning phase, that middle phase, and then the return phase, I would recommend in how I kind of do organization planning, taking us even a step further back of not forecasting and anticipating that someone will need to go on some type of leave or have a difficult, challenging life event where they need grace and empathy at any point in time. And it could be any of us. It could be the CEO down to your newest intern. And, creating, and when you're thinking about scaling organizations, creating responsibilities and roles where there is some overlap, and not to use the word redundancy, but an appropriate accounting term, making sure that if I was out of the office, and I needed to be immediately, that the world will go on. And of course, Plano Leave will move on without me, as important as I think I am. But it's important that key pieces of my role have been distributed out. And I have also experienced loss. When I was at Modernize, I lost my brother-in-law. He had a very aggressive cancer, my sister's husband. And I remember thinking, what are they going to do without me? And regret always happens in these life stages. He was in Dallas. I didn't leave Austin to go see him by his bedside until it was too late, in my opinion, because I had this naive thought that I need to be here for the company. And maybe that was part of my grieving. And so my big learning experience from that was, as much as we can, to remove that burden from any employees thinking, I can't be out because my parents are sick, and I can't be out because a sprint is about to be deployed or is about to be deployed. And I have worked with people that come to me like, my mom is really sick, or my I'm going through a really, really hard time, but I know there's a big project due, and there's that stress. I can't even complete the sentence, but we've all been there. And we have to remember that we are human, and we all need to take care of one another. That's what we're there for, a company. Plano Leave's motto is family first, then health, last career. And I preach that, and I think about that daily when people come to me and have that safe space, and hopefully the vulnerability to come to me of look, I'm struggling with isolation, or I'm struggling with my partner, or I'm struggling with my dog. And it's like, we'll handle it. We will handle it.
Yeah.
Don't you worry about a thing. And I think, again, sans us not having a policy is when you put that trust into your workforce, then they come back knowing that they're not temporary, they're not disposable. They can take the time that they need to decompress and grieve and find comfort, and then come back with a renewed energy when the time is right for them.
Yeah, I think that spot on. And I want to dive into something that you said, you know, that as a colleague, so not only as an employer, but as a colleague, how can I show empathy? You know, I think some of the hardest navigation is as HR operators, like we're kind of prepped. We're a little prepped in this space. Like we kind of know what to say and how to do, but let's say there's people on this call that are just colleagues. They just know somebody going through something at work. Like, what do they do? And I think you hit the nail on the head, right? You were like, trust is key. Empathy is key. Understanding is key. I also think that for a lot of people, grief is ongoing. It's a process. And so I think what's really helpful as a colleague is to like check in with people. It's not just in most cases a one-time thing that happened and then you move through it. It's actually it could be a multi-check-in. And so something I did, there's been so many events that have happened in the last year outside of just what we do at work, but in the political arena and in some of the movements that we've seen. There's so much happening that could be impacting and affecting people in grief. I check in with people and say, how are you feeling today? And then I'll check in with them like, how are you feeling tomorrow? And I think that's really important. If you're a colleague and you're like, okay, how can I support people going through grief? I think that's the best thing that you can do, is just know that that grief is an ongoing process. I think the other thing that you mentioned that's also really interesting is it's different for different people, right? Like that personalized piece. And so I always really encourage like other colleagues is take cues from those people. You know, some people really want to share that and they feel empowered by sharing that. And then some people are like, I'm not ready to share that, or I don't want to share that. But it's giving people the permission to feel how they want to feel, but also but also for them to know you're there. Right. It's like taking those cues.
Right. And to give a very vulnerable example, Kara, you were actually there to support me through it, but a loss, not a life loss, but I went through a divorce while at Retell Me Not. And it's just knowing that I had to pour myself into work. I worked harder. I worked early. I worked late. I needed to remove myself from, my own thoughts. And, there are some people that need to take weeks off to be alone in their thoughts, or to go home to family in their thoughts of, this very use case that I'm talking about. And it's not on us to judge what another person chooses. Cause I remember people actually forcing me to be like, Christina, you should take off. You need time off. Like, you need this, you need that. I'm like, I know what I need. I've been in this body for 30 something years. I appreciate the love and the sentiment and that, but Carol, like you said, it's just the cue as a colleague, cueing that, like, and you did this really well 8 years ago. Like, I know you're going through something. I don't know what it is, and I can't relate to it at this exact moment, but let me know how I can be there for you. And that's what I needed to hear. And so if I'm not there to judge, if someone's like, why are they out of the office for 3 weeks because of a divorce when I was able to bounce back in a day, or the other person saying Christina's insensitive to her life needs because she's not out of the office. I think we just have to respect everyone is unique and individual.
Yeah. I love that. Well said. I also think what's interesting too around bereavement leave specifically in that time period is companies that are doing a good job in Austin. I want to plug a couple. Bumble just recently announced this year that they were going to be giving 15 days for grief. And again, everyone's scenario is different, right? You plugged yourself into work. You were like, I need to be here. I need to be busy. And when my mom passed away, I came back to my desk and I was like, I cannot be here. I feel like an alien. And that's absolutely okay. Right. And it's like, so what do you think, in terms of, Bumble rolling out this awesome policy around 15 days for paid time off? I think the misconception is that some people want to use it and some people don't, and that's okay. It's just having guidelines that as you as an employer and you maybe as a startup founder are thinking about how can I support people during this time. It's just knowing, giving people that time, if that's a couple days, if that's a couple weeks, whatever that person needs to kind of move through that, I think is what we should do to support that. So,
well, you think of it like with some parental leave, like at Plano, trying to like draw a parallel.
Yeah.
Our 12 weeks of paid parental leave for birthing and non-birthing parents can be used at any time in the first 12 months of the event. And so, if a company like Bumble, which is really great, policy to say 15 days, and like you said, grief comes in ebbs and flows. It's not like I'm out for 2 weeks and then bam, I'm back to 100%. Is okay, if you're the type of person that needs to jump into work as a distraction, can I parking lot, use a few days here and parking lot the rest if you do have, an accrual like vacation policy versus open PTO. Like, again, I don't have a policy, but as I hear you talking, like that's something that I would, want to put in place. It's not a use it or lose it in the first 3 weeks of the event. It's use it when you need it.
Yeah, I think you're spot on there. I think that's a really interesting idea. And I know that's something also at Cognite that we do with our new parents as well, is that if you want to take the time off for how many days that you want to at different times, we do that. It's a great segue, actually. So I want to give a little bit of room to talk about a different type of leave, not necessarily bereavement, but more thinking about maternity leave, paternity leave, parental leave, caregiver leave. There's all kinds of leave also, not just at the end of life, but at the beginning of life. That is stress producing in its own right. You're a mom of two amazing boys, and I haven't gone through that yet. But, I think you had mentioned that Plano is family first, and you guys have a really awesome process around maternity leave. And I love this idea of like being able to use the time when you need it. And it doesn't always have to be at once. At Cognite, we've had so many new parents. It's amazing. So many new parents in the last year and a half that I feel so proud. And I'm like, this is great. I want to support that life event. I know that it's stressful. And I know some of our new parents have taken a couple of days, locked back in, taken another couple of weeks that, and they've done what works best for the life. And that's supportive. Walk me through, at Plano, what you think about around parental leave and that stage of life. What are you guys doing? I know the Zebra in Austin is also, the Zebra founded in 2012. They're an insurance comparison site. They have a really great program. They launched, I think, a year or two ago that their new policy was, 20 weeks for caregivers. And I love this idea of caregiver, right? Do you have to be actually a birthing mother, or are you raising a parent? Are you adopting? Are you going through a child with special needs? It's like caregiving, I think is definitely impacts most of us. And I think about even when my mom passed away, I was caregiving to her at her end of life, that kind of, and so, so I think the Zebra is doing an awesome job paving the way in kind of the caregiving. What are you doing at Plano around maternity, parental caregiving leave?
Yeah, I mean, I'm very passionate because it directly impacts me and over 30 million other families in the U.S. with children with children with at least one working parent, and it's everywhere. And yes, in the past year and a half, we've had a baby boom, and at Plano we have, like I said, like a little under 50 employees and 9 babies this year, 6 of them right now, and 3 of those are on the executive team. So we're running very, very lean, but because we have this like get prepared before your leave happens, and teamwork, and I've got your back and I will cover, and I don't know what all these jobs are, but we can keep the ship afloat mentality. I think Plano is thriving and doing a great job with the parental leave that we have going on at this moment as of today. But at Plano, we have 12, like formally in the handbook prospect, 12 weeks of parental leave for birthing and non-birthing parents. And it's very important to me. And if any other HR leaders are on this call, challenge you to review the handbook, because like you said, Kara, like the caregiving, like who's to say, you know, maternity versus paternity, you know, which genders take care, or even primary versus non-primary. Like, it's not our place as an organization to define, you know, if you know, a birthing woman is having a baby, if that is the primary or secondary, or if a gentleman is, you know, a self-identified gentleman is having a baby, is that primary or not primary? And so we're just like, are you caring for another person?
That's right.
Our leave.
It's a big job. It's a big job. Doesn't matter.
Right. And I went, and having been a birthing mother, and my partner did not have the luxury of having much time off. I cross-checked data today. He said he took about a week for each of our children, and it was isolating. It was lonely. And then I would get in my head and thoughts of like, am I qualified to be a working mom? And do I should be working? And, you know, there's a lot of women, you know, or parents, I should say, mothers and fathers, but a lot of parents that are leaving the workforce because of the pressures of trying to balance work and family. And it's just so difficult. And so we just, again, like I said, with bereavement, to be quick, you know, arrive where you are. The policy is 12 weeks, but that week, those weeks after, if you need a slow return, meaning more flexible hours, or you want to take more leave after that, unfortunately it is unpaid, but, you know, we have to, you know, have that somewhere, but you can, we're flexible. Just talk to us, and having that plan in place. If you're the type of person that is scared to be alone with a newborn, like I was, like, if you want to come back early, we don't need you to, but again, we're not going to enforce anything, but just having the flexibility, having the empathy of everyone is different. It's same thing, bereavement leave, parental leave, any type of leave in my book.
I agree. I think well said. And I think you hit on something that was interesting. It's this idea that support is across dimensions, right? So we talked a little bit about paid leave, right? So that I would consider like financial support. And then we talked about, you know, emotional support. How do you emotionally? And then we also talked about like how resource planning is so critical to keep your business moving. I think maybe a common assumption is that I'm a small startup. I can't offer any leave. Like people can't leave, you know, and it's like, okay, well, life happens, or in this exact scenario, shit happens. And we have to be prepared. And so resource planning at any stage of your startup, if you're a 5-person shop, if you're 50, if you're 500, you need to plan and better prepare, right? So, I think I want to talk a little bit about maybe the emotional support side, the employee assistance programs. You know, employee assistance programs, for those of you who don't know what that is and haven't heard of it, on the HR side, it's any type of employer sponsored program that helps you with the coaching or counseling. Usually it comes in attached with some of your healthcare. So you might have it through a company like Blue Cross Blue Shield of Texas, or you might have it in any other like Unum, or any type of employee assistance program. I think I want to talk a little bit about that and what we think about those, and some of the new tools entering the market in employee assistance programs. So I have a stat here that I want to share. According to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, productivity loss due to personal issues, health issues, stress-related issues cost us $200 billion annually. Everybody is impacted by stress. And as an employer and as an HR operator, like, we have to think about how this impacts our group, how to keep people happy, healthy, and sustainable. We offer these employee assistance tools. What I think is so interesting is that on average, less than 10% of your employee population might even use this tool or even know it's available. I actually talked to someone the other day. I said, do you have an EAP tool? And they were like, what is that? And then they said, maybe, I don't know. We probably do. And so is there like education and awareness piece around it? There's new tools entering the market. I think of like Modern Health. I think of like Lyra Health, where they are these kind of new healthcare assistance programs or ancillary programs in addition to your major healthcare, where you can talk to a licensed therapist. And you know, what are your thoughts on that? What are your thoughts on EAPs? Do they work? You know, what do you do at Plano? Do you have a certain EAP? I know at Cognite, we have something called Health Advocate, where you can log in and it's free and it's confidential and it's a wide variety of emotional and mental health resources. You know, what are you doing at Plano? Do you think it's working?
Yeah, I mean, we are kind of budding and developing in this arena, like in full transparency. We don't have like a formal like EAP with on call virtual therapists and counselors and things like that. And, in thinking of, and I'm sure there's a lot of people here today in like kind of the startup mentality of like the scrappy employee assistance program. And it's just having someone on your team. If you're too small to have an HR leader, is it someone on your leadership team? Is it the founder that is available and is there to, not be the therapist, but to create that vulnerable and safe space to field the challenge and hear the person out, and then refer them out, to the best professional, that can help them. If it is kind of, investing into like a wellness app, like a Headspace or an Emilio or something, or is it a formal employee assistance program? But as we're kind of growing, to your point, there are times where there's not a lot of adoption with some of these tools, but I wonder, is it a matter of just knowing that they're out there, they're available? Is it, is it relevant? And that's what we struggle with. And so we could invest, let's say, into one particular, tool. But again, since we all grieve differently and we all decompress and de-stress differently, I wonder, like, am I in an HR leader being like, and my job is done, I have one tool out there? Or do I need to think comprehensively of like, okay, this yoga app may not work for you, or this like access to counseling may not be relevant to you. But what we need to do is have the safe space for the conversation, and we will do everything in our power to find you the tools and resources that you do need at your unique situation.
Yeah, I love that. I couldn't agree more with you. I think it's enabling our leaders, enabling our managers to feel equipped to have that conversation. So I love that. We're really focusing at Cognite around wellness this month in October, around health and wellness, mental health and wellness. It's a international kind of mental health day this month. And so we've just recently rolled out another tool, ClassPass. It's been around for ages, but they've actually expanded their product offering outside of just fitness into more wellness, meditation, all sorts of things. And so you're right. It is really hard as an HR leader to choose like what tools make the most sense for your group. But I know at Cognite, we're constantly evaluating, listening to our employees and being like, okay, we'll do our best to like try to put the programs in place that people want to use, because you're right. Utilization, why roll something out that's not going to work and nobody's going to use it, right?
Right.
So important. I know I think maybe have around 10 minutes left in our talk. I wanted to save the best for last, right? Let's talk about burnout. Let's talk about COVID-19. Let's talk about all of these life events. What's really interesting is that Gartner rolled out a new study around well-being benefits and responses to the pandemic and what companies are doing to decrease burnout. I mean, you and I know on the HR operator side that when people leave, it's incredibly painful and it's costly to our business, right? So we want to make sure people are happy, healthy, engaged. And they say with us, I in the report by Gartner, it said that half of companies that they polled rolled out some type of new process this year. If it was flexible work hours, if it was additional time for parents because their kids were home. There's so many different things that employers did. And what I also thought was interesting that in this time, that same survey said more than half of employees utilized those programs, right? So we saw new programs rolling out and we saw utilization increasing. What we did at Cognite, I have this incredible head of internal communications and culture. She created a CogFlex policy, so Cognite flexible policy. What that enabled was a guideline. It wasn't a policy necessarily, but it was like guidelines to give people the safe space to be like, hey, this is when I need to work. This is how I can work. This is how kind of crisis management, emergency management. We offer flexible spending accounts for parents. There's a lot of things that we're doing. But similar to your point, it's people first, right? It's think about when that winter storm hit back in, was it February? And people were constantly messaging me. I had a new hire start and she was worried that like she couldn't do her job the first week. And I said, absolutely not. Like, are you okay? Are you healthy? Like, do you have what you need? and then we'll pivot into work. But, you know, I think it's natural for us to be like, how is work going to perceive this? And so I want to ask you, like, what are you doing at Plano to fight burnout? And what are some of the new programs or thoughts that you've had around, you know, this time in the pandemic, which is such a unique time for us?
Yeah, I remember having like extreme personal like stress around right when the shutdown happened, and my kids were, I sound like a terrible parent. I don't remember, 2 and 3, 2 and 4, whenever the pandemic first started a long time ago, and cannot be left unattended children. And so daycare was closed, and coming from prior work environments where working from home, you could not like have kids around. Like I worked at a company where they're like, if you're gonna, you know, stay home because your kids are home from daycare, you have to take a PTO day, because really, who can work with kids at home? And and I guess that being in the back of my mind and having a little bit resentment towards that, you know, old school thinking, I was like, oh my God, what am I going to do? And in talking to other colleagues, like I have a neighbor that in the neighborhood that she felt the pressure and actually quit her job because of her boss didn't want the kids in the Zoom meetings. But, you know, I had a very open conversation, a vulnerable conversation with the founder of my company. And I was like, I don't know what to do. Like, my husband and I both work, and I have kids that cannot be left unattended, and daycares are closed. And he made me feel very comfortable. His name's Andy. He made me feel very comfortable, like, bring them to every meeting. And I never looked back. And we have a new CEO now, and we kind of, she knows that Stephen or Andrew will pop in and very much be part of the meeting. And it's just, it prevented the burnout, because I remember having the unnecessary stress of like, I cannot juggle it all, and like tears in between trying to like set up my son's virtual classes to this meeting on time. And and they both start at 11. And so what's first? Of course, my kids' class. And so when we talk about, you know, arriving where you are and giving the flexibility of someone for parental leave and bereavement leave need weeks of a time. How I look at preventing burnout are the micro moments that a business can decide, are you going to pull this person out of the rough waters of Christina? If you're going to be 3 minutes late because you're going to go set up your son on their like, you know, virtual schooling app, like, we'll see you in 3 minutes. We'll see you in 4 minutes. And like, it would just reset me for the next like few weeks that like my company has me. Or, you know what, I need to walk my dog because my dog has been growling at me because I've been in meetings all day. Like, it's not that's what Slack is for. And like the emojis of like dog walking or baby sleeping or my brain is exploding, you know, like if we just say that, like, we know you're working, we know you're trying your best, we're all doing our best, and we're blending, unfortunately, work and life all at the same time. It's a weird time, but take care of you. If there's a laundry emoji, I would use that every 15 minutes of the day. But it's important that we know, y'all, we have lives outside of just work. And I think that's what helps with the burnout.
Yes, absolutely. You're right. You nailed it. And one of the things that I think you talked about was like transparent communication, right? So you have to have leaders that support that, but you also have to feel confident and comfortable to be like, hey, this is a priority for right now. I'm running 5 minutes late. And my partner, Luke, he and I talked about this the other day. He's like, I'm late for a meeting. Oh my God. He's like, just let them know you're going to be late. It's okay. Like life happens. And sometimes we miss meetings, or sometimes something runs over, or an unexpected dog, you know, vomits on the floor, you know, whatever it is. And you're just like, it's true. It's really hard. I think us as HR operators, us as, you know, startup founders and leaders, we have to commit that we're going to help with everybody kind of cope with that. And we're going to be flexible and show grace and make that a part of our whole selves, right? We talked about this whole selves to work, and we've talked about making sure that that people feel supported in every kind of dimension.
I want to answer the question from the chat. There was a question saying, like, any advice on how to manage burnout cycle? And, you know, for example, if you're busy for 3 weeks and then, you know, there's, you know, and then there's a burnout period. I am a very organized, process-oriented person. I'm in HR. I have to be, and my life goes on a cycle. All of ours does. And I just would almost in advance celebrate what the cycle is. Like, for example, we are in a very heavy recruiting season right now. And I just work so hard to like fill a role. As soon as that offer letter is signed, for like per hire. I'm burnt out, but I intentionally celebrate, like, okay, Christina, take days, a couple days to decompress and reset. And I tell my manager, I tell everyone that needs to know, like, I'm in celebration mode. And if you don't want me to be burnt out, this is the grace that I need. And like, same thing with engineering sprints. Like, maybe there's that space after a really hard sprint. Don't jump into the next one 10 minutes later. Like, allow space for decompression.
And I would say another good point is self-care, right? And self-care can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people, but self-care for me is that I actually sometimes block my calendar around being like organized of self-care. Like I need to do yoga every other day from 5 to 6. It's in my calendar. You can see that actually. Anyone can see that on my calendar because I want them to know I'm prioritizing my self-care and my health and well-being so that I can be 110% at work. And I think to your point, if, transparent communication, staying organized, celebrating your wins, right? Of like when that cycle is over, all can be super helpful. For me, it's the calendar thing. I have to do certain things in my week to make me feel balanced. And I want people to know that. And I want them to feel like that's okay too.
Last thing I'll say, if my manager ever sees as the CEO, is because she'll laugh and she's very aware. When I know I'm about to be burnt out, I don't wait till it's sizzled. I'm just like, I'm having a really hard week and I'm really busy and it's coming. and then she can kind of proactively help reorganize things. And that's the team I try to lead to, is like, let me know before it goes off the cliff and we will get through it together.
Yeah. Totally agree. I think we have to wrap up now. This has been so amazing. Thank you for everyone who dialed into this. I think I'll close with that. I'm really excited about what mental health and the wellness market in the years to come is going to come on the B2C side, obviously as a consumer, but also on the B2B side. I think there's more benefits and more offerings that are you're starting to see pop up this year, more startups in the health and wellness tech space. I know in Austin, Eternova, which is an interesting kind of diamond space where you can turn ashes into diamond. There's a lot of cool innovation happening in this health and wellness bereavement leave space. I think, billions of dollars are getting investment money is getting put into it. So I'm kind of excited to see what's to come. I think we're on the right track for positive change in this area, in this space.
Yeah, agreed.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Kara and Christina, for joining us. I wanted to remind you guys that I'm going to be at Irene's today at 5 p.m. at 506 West Avenue in Austin, Texas. I hope I get to meet you guys in person. If not, no worries. I love how you guys are addressing burnout, self-care, but also transparent communication. I'm actually the road warrior for Sana. We're like 150 people right now. And I was traveling all over the country for 2 months. And yeah, I actually experienced burnout. So when you guys are talking, I actually experienced it firsthand. But thank you so much, Christina. Thank you so much, Kara. So that's it. I'm going to go ahead and wear my unicorn hat. And I wanted to share something with you guys. This weekend, I actually went to ACL for the first time in my life. I actually decided to do something that was very creative and very fun. And I actually saw Miley Cyrus. And one of her mantras that she shared with everyone in Austin was, let go. And that's something that I'm really ready to practice starting today. So remember, just let go. And this has been fun. I want to thank Austin Startup Week for giving me the opportunity to host second year in a row. Thank you so much. I also want to say thank you to Haley. Haley was our tech behind the scenes. She did an amazing job. And I wanted to close it by saying, please enjoy Austin Startup Week. And let's go ahead and do the best we can so we can all support each other and able to make not only a difference in Austin, in Texas, but all over the country and also in the world.